Some time ago, I started making videos talking specifically about states' rights. It was a very different subject than Venezuela, Antarctica, the Fitzgerald investigation. It specifically had to deal with how to fix the problems of our nation. Now, this was long before the arrival of COVID, but now we see it's starting to come into reality, into focus, that we are, in fact, 50 different states. And we have our own unique and individual challenges here in Florida, just like they have out on the West Coast. We are starting to see a bit of a falling away, and maybe that's a bad term, a distinguishing of those differences. California, Oregon, and Washington State wish to have their own guidelines, which I believe they have the right to, as we do here in Florida for opening up. I believe had it been left up to us completely, we would have never closed, but another story for another day. But it did remind me of a story from the Bible, and I would like to share that with you today. But I'd like to lead with this first. If my people, who are called by my name, humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and heal their land. Now, this seems like a far cry from those who are attempting to decide what is an essential business or an essential service. I would make the allegation that gathering together to worship the Lord and pray is neither a service nor is it a business. It shouldn't be considered either one. I think that's why founding fathers wrote it very clearly that Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of. The story that I was referring to was the story of the Exodus. Proverbs 16:12 teaches us, "It is an abomination for kings to commit wickedness, for a throne is established by righteousness." Now, I'm sure many out there is like, well, wait, we don't have a king. Really? I haven't heard the words absolute power come out of a leader of this country in a long time, but the Lord said in Exodus 9 to Moses, "Go to Pharaoh and say to him, quote, this is what the Lord, capital L, Lord, the God, capital G, God, of the Hebrews says, let my people go so that they may worship me." Now, at this time, the Exodus was long before Jesus and his era. But there were still pharaohs. And I'd like to illuminate the difference between King Herod, Caesar Augustus, and Pharaoh Ramses II. I know they all served at different times, and maybe served as a big word, ruled at different times. Herod was the king of the province known as Judea. Now, there were many provinces of the Roman Empire. He was simply king of one of them. And even he had to answer to Caesar. But Caesar, they had a senate. And just ask Julius at Tu Brute, sometimes even Caesars had to play the game. While they seemed to rule with absolute power and might, one of the hallmarks of the Roman Empire was that they didn't rule like Egypt did. The leader of Egypt, Pharaoh, ruled with an iron fist, by himself, solely, individually far more powerful than any Caesar or any king. I just wanted to show this image to give you an idea of how big the Egyptian Empire was and how big the Roman Empire was. One of the hallmarks of the Roman Empire was that they allowed regional governors and regional religious beliefs to go on, to continue. All they wanted was the taxes. That's why the Roman Church devolved into a whole bunch of conglomerations of heathen ritual. very, very unlike what Christians before that time would have ever tolerated. But not Egypt. The power of an Egyptian pharaoh was unmatched. And I just want to share just a little bit of this. The most powerful person in ancient Egypt was the pharaoh. The pharaoh was the political and religious leader of the Egyptian people, holding the titles Lord of the Two Lands, High Priest of every temple. No Caesar that ever ruled said that. No king that ever sat in England said that. As Lord of the Two Lands, the pharaoh was the ruler of Upper and Lower Egypt. You ready for this? He owned all of the land, made laws, collected taxes, and defended Egypt against foreigners. As high priest of every temple, the pharaoh represented the little g gods on earth. He performed rituals and built temples to honor the little g gods, as in thou shalt not have any other before me gods. But even Pharaoh himself, eventually learned what true power was really all about. And those of you familiar with the story of the Exodus know about the plagues and the angel of death and what happened. Eventually, even Pharaoh, the single most powerful man that ever lived, had to admit he was just a man. He called himself the morning and the evening star. And as he spoke it, so it was. There was no negotiation. There was no politics involved. There was no haggling with the Senate. He spoke it and it happened. That's how powerful Pharaoh was. Imagine the God, Moses, the position he was in. There was nothing Pharaoh could say that wasn't done. Even the colonies, we were able to bring King George to his knees. But without the intervention of Almighty God, the Hebrews would have perished. This is the power we have. But indeed for this purpose I have raised you up, that I may show my power in you, and that my name may be declared in all the earth. You see, you and I, as Christians, we have the power to beat this literally by speaking it out of existence. We really do. We can speak this out of existence in our lives. And many call that foolishness. But that's also in the Bible. I will make the wisdom of men foolishness. So as much as this channel as possible can do, I'm going to attempt to speak peace into this situation and give people the power and authority that I think they have forgotten they have. Even the most powerful leaders that have ever ruled were men. Pharaoh himself was brought to naught, to total destruction, by our God, the living God, whose Son, Jesus Christ, shed his blood so that we may have that power. So go forth, literally, and heal. Put your hands on people and heal them if they are sick. I've given this command to both of my daughters to do so. They were both baptized. They both have that power. And be led by the Spirit and not by your fear. Not even by the threats of kings. And I truly believe we have one who has forgotten, sitting in D.C., that he is a tempire, public servant in executive administration. He is a tempire, public servant in executive administration. If he does all right for 4 years, we give him 4 more and that's it. But seemingly now, he has gotten it in his head that he thinks he's Pharaoh and has started using the term absolute power. If he wants to learn very quickly what absolute power really is all about, he just needs to look up and understand he's a man, just like I'm a man. Not of myself, but only through Christ and the power of his blood. Can we make it through this? I want to be very clear about that. And there will be no argument about it, no fighting and no debating. Follow the world or follow Christ. Like, share, subscribe.